Hey everyone, Eric Watson here, freelance writer, player of games, writer, recorder videos, and a tabletop role-playing aficionado. Welcome to the Thursday edition of my bi-weekly behind-the-scenes DM only live stream Crafting the Deep, in which I build, write, and prepare for our next session of Call from the Deep. If you are playing characters of Gottwald, Max, Sabra, or Twirl, this video is not meant for you, and will be full of spoilers, but of course the rest of you are more than welcome. We stream our D&D sessions live on YouTube every Friday. You can join our official Discord server with invite link in the description below. If you'd like to support the channel, please check out patreon.com/RogueWatson. For our campaign, we use Roll20.net, and for streaming, I use OBS Studio. I also have turned off the HDR on my monitor, at least for now. It was just causing me too much of a headache to try and make it all work, I guess. And frankly, HDR content looks particularly bad on non-HDR monitors, I'm realizing. I guess SDR is the term. And I have one HDR monitor and then two SDR monitors, and I was always using my, streaming software in the other monitor, and every time I was looking at it, it's like, it just looks like it's all like, I don't know, faded, and there's no, it looks worse. So like, why would I do something that looks good to maybe some folks who have HDR content, but I imagine a lot of folks don't have it. And plus, it's not like I'm, doing high graphical intensive games or something. This is just browser windows and shit. So I think I'm gonna, for the most part, turn it off. Maybe for the Baldur's Gate live, or not live plays, but let's plays, I'll maybe turn that back on, because I'd like to have it on while I play games. That would be nice. And I think I figured out how to make sure it records okay. But I think for the purposes of doing our D&D stuff, I don't think it's worth doing. If any of you care, then I'm willing to listen. But I don't think we're going to have to use the HDR much here. And it's not like I'm missing out on much. It's literally just like browser windows and stuff for now. And hopefully the internet is working. I lost Wi-Fi earlier, but that has come back. And we're not dropping any frames or anything right now, so that's good news. I don't have to fuck around with that like we did on Monday's stream. So let's have a error-free, visually fine crafting stream. We can all do this together. So we're still talking about the Sinister secret of Saltmarsh. The Sinister secret is about to be revealed at the start of session 2, as the players open their way up to room 21, which is the cellar, through 2 different methods, actually. They found both entrances there. And then Ned will get off a super surprise round, say something pithy, jump down, try to backstab and murder the fuck out of our friend Twirl, and then try to run away. I didn't think Gottwald wasn't up this far. I don't think I moved him, did I? Maybe I did. I don't know. But yeah, he'll try to jump down, do his super sneak attack, backstab, and then run away. I did have folks in the either Discord or YouTube comment mention the fact that during a surprise round, players do not have their reaction, which I always forget. And I think all of us always forget that rule. The fact that you don't have, like, you can't throw up a shield spell or get an attack of opportunity or whatever else. That's something I need to write in a sticky note to remind myself. So technically he doesn't have to disengage. He can just do his attack and then bonus action dash, which is still going to be, I think, the best method for him, which hopefully that'll just, if it doesn't down Twirl, and it may not, depends on how his, damage rolls are, then at least that puts the fear in them that there's somebody up there running around that can stab and do that. And I may just keep him in my back pocket and have him keep, harassing the players, possibly, during the same combat, or if not, then maybe by the time they get to the cellars, he can be harassing them, or he could just fuck off, and then he's kind of a reoccurring villain after that. At the very least, I'd like him to appear once more during this scene, because I think I am going to have him allied with these smugglers. I think that's the easiest way for me to work out his story. He's part of the crew, but he was kind of off duty. And Gellin is very aware that he's part of the crew. Gellin is in on it. He's basically, the face of the smuggling operation. He's got, all of the crime and stuff. He's just kind of the kingpin of Saltmarsh. And yet, of course, if the players even try to catch wind of the fact that he's in charge of it, he will disavow everything, deny, like any good corrupt politician. And they will not be able to probably catch him or enforce him, which may be a little bit unsatisfying for the players, but that's also kind of the way life works. The most worst people very rarely get their comeuppance, but we will see. I would like one of the bandits to escape to the secret door, at least try to make his way over there so that the players know it's there, because otherwise there's not a good indication that where they go from here. The main thing I've been working on this week, however, is tying together Call from the Deep with the events that, with the information they get from Area 22, which is Sambalay's quarters. So as written, oops, all my windows are super small. When I disabled HDR, my monitor had to blink, so it resized like all my windows and stuff. That was fun. Room 22 is Sambalay's quarters. Let's see. She's got the lantern, which uses to signal the sea ghost. Some books, which I do like the fact that it teases. Like there's a naval almanac. I'll delete this part. A treatise concerning the demigod Luz and its minions. We're not going to include that. Instead, we can just have one of the books be like simple goblin phrases or working with goblins or something funny. Working with goblinoids, which would maybe tease the players that they've got like some goblins here or something when it's, in fact, it's hobgoblins, but yeah. There's an oilskin coat in there, and then I'm not going to put his spell book. I just don't like the idea that, and I know some folks have said, well, you might just store his spell book somewhere. It's like, yeah, that's fine, but I don't know, man. Every player character wizard is going to have the spell book on them. They're not going to store it, even if they're like home or something. I don't know. So I'm going to have his spellbook be on him, and that's part of that'll be part of the big treasure loot they can get from Sambalay himself. Will be his spellbook. And then there's a small wooden box under the table, which holds 12 candles, flint and steel, and a piece of parchment that details Sambalay's method of communicating with the ship. Unfortunately, that is not actually like a handout or anything. In fact, it says see the signaling system, which I believe is, yeah, under the Sea Ghost section. The characters discover the bullseye on the parchment area 22 of the haunted house. They have a big clue to how the smugglers communicate. You might require the characters make a successful DC 12 investigation check to determine how the system works, although certain facts are not written on the parchment. Alternatively, you can allow the characters to experiment with sending signals when the ship comes back. The signaling system utilizes the bullseye lantern to communicate the following messages, which is a Morse code. I don't actually know if this is real Morse code or not. I just know Morse code works in terms of it's essentially binary language. It's either, there's only two options, short and long, but it's the combinations of short and long that make different phrases, things you can communicate via light. You only have two states of light, either yes light or no light. Is it safe? Everything's safe, ready to unload, come to the ship. Now, I do think this might just be good information just to straight up give the players. I thought about I could turn this into a whole puzzle thing in terms of like, oh, there's multiple phrases here and things, but I don't necessarily want this to be too convoluted. I think it's better just kind of spell things out. And more importantly, this phrase is important because the players may think, okay, we can, and I mentioned this, I think, a week ago, in waiting for the next ship, we can just hang out here in the caverns and then ambush whoever comes in. However, that's not how this smuggling operation works. How it works is that the smugglers themselves take the small little jetty boat out to the ship, which just waits out there and anchor, safely. And then they exchange the goods or whatever there. So this clue, ready to unload, come to the ship, should hopefully give players that information that like, oh, okay, this is how this system works. Like, we have to go out to meet them. The arrangement calls for someone aboard the ship to flash the first signal. The shore party replies by flashing the second signal, after which the third signal flashes from the ship. It drops anchor and waits for the arrival of a boat from shore. A small group of smugglers board to the ship in a rowboat. When it arrives, the ship sends a boat in the other direction. Is that not the same boat? These two vessels alternate in transferring. Okay, I guess they do send their own after the first one approaches. Transferring, may just be the one boat, with one of them remaining on the shore cave at the end of the operation. It has been arranged that this does not appear on the parchment for the first signal to be repeated every 10 minutes for an hour. If the ship gets no response, it is assumed that there is some delay and the Sea Ghost sails away. That could be interesting information. Why does it not appear on the parchment, though? The players would have no idea to do this then. It does not appear on the parchment. For the first signal repeated every 10 minutes for an hour. I mean, I don't want the ship to sail away. I think I need to give that information too, which could make things interesting for the players because they're like, well, shit, we don't have enough players to do that. Like, we need to get an NPC or something, or maybe keep somebody alive in order to give the proper like all clear signal. Smugglers will drop anchor if the character sent any kind of return signal to the ship, not necessarily the correct one. The crew of the Sea Ghost is accustomed to seeing an improper signal from time to time because the gang in the shore often operates the lantern clumsily. In case something has gone awry, however, the ship's crew will be on alert when the characters make their approach. So it's all good information, which I think I'm just going to convey that to the players. I think I'm going to be pretty straightforward and have that information in Sambalay's quarters. You know, it makes sense they would keep track of all that. What they won't necessarily know is where that's done. They didn't necessarily explore all of the second floor. If they go back up there and find out, they will see, you know, they'll be able to see the tracks and like the scuffing on the windowsill or whatever. It doesn't really matter where the light comes from though, as long as they just determine that like they can't do it from the cave or anything. They need to be up in the house proper, like in a window overlooking everything. And if they don't do that, then that would obviously send things a little bit more on high alert. So I think I'm going to give them all of this information as part of that parchment. What I also need to do, and this is just from the book, now I need to start incorporating elements from Call from the Deep, which is working towards the big moment I have that's going to separate Act 1 to Act 2, I guess it's the beginning of Act 2, is the attack on Neverwinter, this multi-pronged assault that everybody's gearing up for, and it's kind of the Elder Brain / Kraken's first real like attack on the mainland. So they've been gathering, you know, weapons and things for at least a little bit of time. So something I would like to convey in the parchment they require is the fact that Sambalay would be keeping track of like the smuggling goods, essentially. It's kind of a smoking gun, I guess, for authorities, but that way he writes down kind of just a simple ship manifest thing, the ship, the captain, and kind of like what goods ultimately got smuggled. And then what I'd like to do is convey the fact that lately there have been different, more shady captains and ships appearing that instead of smuggling in, you know, contraband that these guys are basically paying for and then turning around and selling for a bigger profit. I guess I'm not quite sure how that system works, honestly. I don't think it quite explains it terribly well here. It just says that they've got some goods here, or maybe they're just selling stolen goods that are stolen from other ships or something. I don't know. But I would assume these smuggler guys are actually buying it from the ship and then they're turning around and selling it for, I guess, a bigger profit. But then with these later ones who are part of the actual Black Armada, they would be giving them just money and asking them to smuggle in weapons, like weaponry. So maybe, which means the way I've got it written right now, and I couldn't actually find this information in the Roll20, by the way. I'm not sure if this didn't make it. I remember looking for this last time, and I don't think it's in the Roll20 version of Call from the Deep, but it is in my PDF version. But there's a mention of, like, I think when it says random encounters, there's a part where you can have, or no, maybe I saw it through NPCs, but either way, in Appendix D, where it says ships and crew, there's supposed to be a whole section at the end of this where it gives you a bunch of example pirates and pirate ships, or just other ships you could run into. So that's not in here. I searched everywhere in this supplemental materials section, and I could not find that section, even though it is in the PDF I have. In fact, I can switch you over for a second if you want to see my what I'm looking at. Let's see if this works. Oh, hang on, doesn't like my webcam. Give me a second. 1 second. Okay, didn't like going from one webcam to another. So this is the actual PDF of Call from the Deep. This is not a Dungeon Master's Guild review, but just work with me for a second. And then it's on page, let's see, where are we? Appendix D is 243. So you can see this is the same information in the Roll20, where it's got running a ship, ship statistics, random ships and crew. And then it's got this example ships and crew, which I could not find in the Roll20 version at all. So this is in my, obviously this exists in the PDF, but I could not find this in Roll20. It's possible just didn't quite make it in there. I mean, it's a lot of stuff in here, or maybe I'm just not finding it in the right section. But this is what I was looking for, and this has some good information. Basically, I just needed some example ships and captains that weren't necessarily the big important ones, because I didn't want to tease those too early, although I did tease one of them, which I don't think I'm going to end up using on the Attack of Neverwinter, but I'm not sure, which is the Drowned Wolfgar, the one who attacks Baldur's Gate, I believe. I was going to use him because he was the least monstrous of the rest. Because a lot of them are like Sawagons, or like a Slod, or what was the other? A freaking Naga. Like, I can't, like, those aren't going to be working with the smugglers. They're way too monstrous. The smugglers are going to be like, no, fuck off. This is like crazy. So I had to use more, somewhat more mundane crews, like, you know, that are still frightening, but not like monstrously so. So this is where I gathered a lot of that, my crew, and I'm going to create, if I have time, I'll create a little parchment thing that I can hand out to the players. But I'm using like the Rusty Harpoon, which sounds like a sex position, by Captain Scarson. That'll be just a normal one where they're smuggling goods. The Water's Crown with Captain Bokran will be a normal one. Siren's Trove with Captain Goldblood will be a normal one. These are all, I gathered all of these from this Call from the Deep section. And then I'm going to use the Breaking Dusk with Captain Stormgale, which is this one up here. And it even specifically says flies the flag of the Black Armada. So I can have, you know, a little bit of tease there, and maybe, and this will literally be like, I don't know, my webcam is so freaking blasted out too. When I switched webcams, it was so bright. I'll have Sandblade basically writing in the margins of like, hey, like this guy's really, you know, and just giving notes, like it mentioned something about Black Armada, and, you know, making little like notations in the margins that should be able to help the players somewhat figuring out. It's just kind of an initial tease of like what's going on here, I guess. Webcam's like, no, you need to be this bright. And then I was gonna have the Sunken Doom, which is Wolfgar, which is from that one is from, I'm gonna go back to the Roll20 game. Give me 1 second. Crafting. You wouldn't believe the amount of scenes I have in OBS these days. It's crazy. All right, we're back. And then Wolfgar is in chapter 2. It's this one. This nice individual has like a octopus octopus tentacle for a tongue. Drowned Wolfgar, who's a Kraken priest. So creepy, but at least somewhat humanoid. Has a bunch of like deep scions and stuff, but just again kind of a tease for maybe what's coming. And basically these ships will be coming in, and they will be teasing the big attack that's going to happen. They'll be pulling they'll be just paying these smugglers to smuggle in weapons, which is a little bit not what these guys are used to, and they may be feeling that like, you know, Sambalay may even be thinking like, this is kind of beyond the pale, this is not really what we signed up for, and, you know, give a little bit of his point of view, basically to confirm the fact that yes, these guys are smugglers and up to no good, but they're also not, they're not part of whatever is coming, essentially. They're kind of an unwitting, not an unwitting, but naive, I guess, about what's going on, the fact that they're smuggling all these weapons out. And that will also, in that same parchment, this very important document, will have written in the margins like, hey, those last 2 ships have come within a week of each other. We expect the next ship to come any night, and that final entry will look very recent, which should hopefully clue the players into the fact that they're going to be ready for another ship arrival. Or maybe I can even be more specific than that and be like, we should expect the next one tomorrow night. I don't know. Or maybe think the players have the foresight to actually get Sambalay alive, or any of the crew members alive, and that might give some information as well. The big worry I have as a DM always is that you end up with this situation where the players have exhausted all the different avenues of me trying to tell them information. But hopefully they'll pick up on maybe trying to keep somebody alive, or if not, I can at least have like 90% of the information from Sambalay's quarters. Now, if they miss this room and they don't go in here at all, which I should be closing these windows up so you can see, that's going to be a little trickier also, because I'm putting a lot of information there. Also, I realized it mentioned the fact that there's a footlocker at the end of the bed. A comfortable looking bed in the northwest corner has a wooden footlocker at its foot. I read through the room description like 8 times, and nowhere does it tell you what's in that footlocker. There's a stack of books, and it goes through the books. There's a table with a hidden compartment where the spellbook is, which I'm not going to put there. There's a wardrobe, which has this 5 gold worth oilskin coat hanging in there, with empty pockets and trimmed in iridescent green silk. And then there's a box under the table, which contains the important parchment that I'm talking about, and then candles and flint and steel. There's nothing about this footlocker. I was like, that's the first thing the player's going to look for. It's like an obvious treasure chest. So now I got to figure out what the hell's in the stupid footlocker. I don't know. Maybe it'll just be the same amount of coin as the other ones, which I think I was going to use that table from the Dungeon Master's guidebook. Not the magic item table, but the... Actually, I thought it was in... No, there's a horde challenge table. It's an individual challenge, or individual treasure tables from the DMG has tables for just rolling a bunch of coins, basically. So maybe I'll do that plus some... Or just have them be some coin. I don't know. Whatever he would put in his footlocker. It seems like there should be something there. It's not trapped. The door is not closed or trapped. Nothing. It's just kind of an open place, I guess. Everybody's got the... Although the footlockers in Area 21 are all locked, aren't they? So why wouldn't his be? It just feels like a weird oversight that like his footlocker has nothing, no information in there. Yeah, the 10 wooden footlockers are all locked. And then they contain personal effects. Each has a coin purse that holds 7 gold and 15 silver. I'm going to leave that up to the individual treasure table to make it a little bit more fun and interesting. So I don't know. There's no information about what to put in that footlocker. Sambalay's got some treasure on him. I was going to have him have a coin purse on him, but I guess he could just have more treasure in his footlocker. Maybe his footlocker could be trapped, the old classic poison needle trap. Or, he puts magic mouths everywhere. Maybe it'd be kind of fun to put a magic mouth. Although, he does that to keep the riffraff out. Like, obviously, all the smugglers would know his magic mouth trick. But it might be fun for a comedic effect. Just have a magic mouth appear on the door or something and be like, "Stay away, you bastards!" I don't know. I feel like at least the door should be locked, or I don't know. There should be something here. Even though I do want the players to get in here and get that information. I feel like the boss would have his own chambers pretty well locked, but they can also get the key off his body. Bone Toad, they do a lot of investigation perception checks. They did last session. I was actually pretty impressed. At least Savra did. Heather's character was doing a crap ton of investigation all around the house, but she is the intelligent wizard, so she had the good roll for that. But yeah, so far they've done a pretty good job of that. And maybe, I don't know, maybe they'll have the foresight to just go ahead and do an investigation check in this room, in which case I can point them towards this southwest door. A bottle of rum that has some special... I mean, you could just put a potion in there. Potions are always good, kind of low-tier loot. Scrolls would be good low-tier loot. He's got his spellbook on him. He has a Pipe of Remembrance, which is like a fun little common magic item. And then I think that's about it. I have to go back to room 27 to see. I think I also need to replace the art in room 27 when I think about it, because if they're specifically smuggling in weapons lately, then that's probably what the majority of this stuff needs to be. And I need to actually include like just mundane weapon loot instead of all these casks and things. Especially if I'm saying that their last couple of shipments have been these ships that are wanting weapons in return for just paying these guys. Maybe we'll search for crate, see if we can find something. Just give me that shipping crate. I did replace the 2 hobgoblins, by the way. The one that's got more hit points is the one by Sambalay, who's going to have the Mariner's armor. Which I will keep. There we go. That's just a good Good crate-ass looking crates. Although this crate is awkwardly a little too fat for one square and a little too stretched for two squares. That's annoying. Can work with that. What should a crate be about? Person sized? Actually, that's not too bad. He plans for a bag of tricks this time. I mean, I think there is one in Call from the Deep, but God, Ray used the crap out of bag of tricks. That's why he went Ranger. Literally went Ranger because he loved having the bag of tricks. I can just do enough of these crates to cover up these barrels. I apologize, Bear. Your art is amazing, but I am changing a little bit about how the smugglers are working here just to better fit it into the Call from the Deep storyline. There we go. Oops. As long as I don't click them. I need to put them on the map layer, though, so I don't do what I just did, which is accidentally touch them. There we go. Map layer, map layer. And then these are for bolts of silk. Maybe I could replace those, too. The silk is supposed to be pretty good loot. So I'm actually kind of denying the players a little bit if I start replacing this stuff. 5 bolts of silk are worth 50 gold each, and the 8 casks of brandy are worth 10 gold apiece at market, though the merchants of Saltmarsh recognize the goods as stolen if the characters try to sell them there. That reminds me of like Skyrim or something where goods were marked as like stolen. Oh yeah, and Zamblay also has a masterfully crafted loaded gaming dice worth 20 gold. I don't know if I want to do bolts of silk. I guess I could. I mean, if I wanted to keep that, I could just make one of the earlier ones have the bolts of silk. I was originally gonna have iron ingots because that's what it was listed in Call from the Deep, but since the map has and Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh has bolts of silk, I could just replace maybe the most recent one before they started doing the weapons as the silk. Maybe they just haven't had a chance to sell them yet or upload them. No, please do not offer to do extra art addendums. That's beyond the pale. Thank you. I mean, thank you for offering, but no, I can throw some assets on there without any problem. Bolts and casket, the same value and conditions found in those area 27. Yeah, so we're gonna. I think as long as we replace the cat. Although I did mention one of them had like, what is it, Moonshay? Yeah, wine from the Moonshay Isles. Maybe I'll replace that one then. I'll say bolts. Yeah, so I'll say silk and wine from Moonshay Isles, in which case we can keep some of that, so we can keep some of the casks. I just wanted to basically convey the fact that they've got a bunch of weapons in crates so that they're ready to move that. And that way the players have an excuse for when they're, arriving with their ship, they can have, these crates. God, these are big ass crates. How many would you have to be able to go? You'd have to do a couple of freaking trips. But maybe that'd be more interesting. The party thinks they can split up and because there's a ship that's going to go and a ship that's going to come back. So maybe we will use these caverns again. I don't know. I think I'll keep the art as is in room 29 for now, and include the fact that the silk and the wine was their last smuggled in shipment, and now they've been like reverse smuggling me, trying to connect the stories together by supplying weapons out to sea with like no questions asked. They've just been paid good money for it. They do get rewarded 200 gold for uncovering and shutting down the smuggling operation. That seems like a lot of money for level 2. As light as this adventure has been in terms of magic equipment and equipment in general, like they actually give you a lot of monetary value towards the end, especially with all the stolen goods you can recover, and then 200 gold I feel like I would only give that much to the players is if they specifically did not take any of the smuggled contraband and said, we need to turn this over to the authorities. And then if you do that, I would probably reward them with that much gold. But if they decide to skim a little off the top, then maybe they would get less gold. That's only if they turn it into Captain. You know what? That'd actually be a fun reward because Prime Water might be the one to reward them as he wants to save face, but he would obviously, and if they turn the goods over to him, then he would reward the players because then he's still got the goods. It's because it's his fucking operation. But if they go and give it to Captain Fireborn, then they might not get. That'd be the more right thing to do, but they might not get as much money because Prime Water would be like, no, my shit. We talked about the timing when it comes to getting to the caverns and triggering a fight. A lot of it is going to depend on what the players do and how they do it, which is true of every session, I suppose. But what the lighting situation is, I'll maybe have somebody call out to them originally and give them a chance to react before immediately starting combat. I think that would probably be helpful. What I may do is put the bandit down here and put the hobgoblin up here by Sam Belay, and then in case they want to get some instant shots off, they'll hit the weaker guys first. They will be able to short rests, certainly, and they'll probably want to do that here. And remember, our short rests are only like 5 minutes, so it's no big deal to just recharge the batteries after that. Does Heather have the shield spell? Because you're using it if you use a magic missile from the boss. I don't know, but players and DMs rarely get a chance to use that benefit of the shield spell, so I would not feel bad about doing that. Plus, it's not like Sambalay knows, that wizard, that A, they're a wizard, and B, they have the shield spell. She does indeed. Yeah, I feel like that's a must. Like, there's too many spells that are just absolute have to takes because they're so useful in so many circumstances. Yeah, she does have the shield spell. And Sambalay has second level spell slot, so he's stronger than these characters are. This could be a tough fight, honestly, right here. The scout's got 20-some hit points. And then, like I said, we've got Ned rolling around. But Ned is my big balancing factor, too. Like, Ned's involvement in this fight will be very much a wild card. Like, just a lot of it depends on how well the players do, how well the enemies do. If the players split up and go after Ned, because they don't know. I guess they will know how much damage he can do when he does his whole big flurry of attacks. But Ned is actually one of the strongest, quote-unquote, creatures in this entire dungeon area. I think, Sandbalay maybe is more powerful, but as a wizard, he can also be squishier with his AC of 11, although I did give Sandbalay 42 fucking hit points. Sambalay would. The big thing is a lot of these guys might surrender, which as a DM is also a tricky timing wise. But these are not Kraken priests or cultists or whatever. They're just smugglers, and they've never been attacked. They might think they can defend themselves here, but especially if more than half of them go down, like one's left, like that one would definitely surrender. Sambalay would certainly surrender, just anything for his life, and that would probably help him be able to give the more information and context to the player. So I'll have to remember as a DM that surrender is definitely on the table for pretty much all of these characters. Like maybe the hobgoblins, I don't know how much they would surrender, thinking they would get, a fair trial anytime soon. But the rest of them surely. Obviously the skeletons and the skeletal alchemist would fight to the death and would be a deceptively challenging fight. I do have to remember not to actually trigger the skeleton fight until players start walking into the room. I think that'd be more interesting versus if somebody just opens the door and then you trigger the things and they can just close the door and be like, nope, and rebar it, and that's more anticlimactic versus somebody opening the door. So maybe I can describe the room in spooky terms and they can hopefully step in. Maybe I can describe, a pile of something that looks interesting to get them to go in the dark room that's barred. I don't know what the description of the room actually says on this one. 23. Light spilling in from the large room behind you barely shows the chamber is only about 12 feet across. 12 feet across? That's not true. I'll have to change that. It's clearly like 15 by 30. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30. And the corners are filled with shadows. What little you can see is dingy and dirty. So there's, yeah, they open it up and just see a dark room with nothing in it. 6 old skeletons lurk in the shadows here. They rise and attack as soon as the characters enter the room. I can at least maybe tease the fact that there's some bones scattered about. There's a weird bit where it says the skeletons are reinforced by compounds applied to their bones years ago. The first time they take damage from melee attack, the damage is reduced by half. If the skeletons are vulnerable to that damage, they instead ignore that vulnerability for this attack. That just feels like it's too much work for me to keep up with that. Try to give them like resistance on their first time that each one has been attacked. And that's supposed to be playing into the fact that it's a skeletal alchemist. He's been like transmuting some stuff. But I think that's just too much context to put in there. We don't need to worry about all that. Be interesting if they can capture and then turn around and use them as an asset against the invasion later. For sure. I think that would be really fun, actually. Like, prop them up and be like, all right, you need to do everything that you would normally do, and we'll be part of your crew. I think that has a lot of potential to be really fun as well. So hopefully they'll think to leave somebody alive, but if they don't, then I will step in and certainly offer surrender. Sandblade would be the best one because he's got, he's the named NPC. But we could also turn like any, of the randos into a character as well. Be the next Ballista. Yes, ma'am. What?
My tongue.
What's wrong with your tongue? What's wrong with it?
Flip. I've been crunching in the crayon.
You didn't eat a crayon, did you? Please don't eat crayons. Why don't you go get some water? Okay. Lord. I love to give all foes magic missiles. It rewards players with shield and makes them always a threat as enemies. I mean, magic missiles, like, it's a great spell because there's no attack roll. So no matter what the AC or saves of your players are, they're going to take some damage. So it's, yeah, and it scales relatively well. It doesn't do a whole lot of damage, but you can spread it out as much as you want. Yeah, it's a great spell for DMs to use especially. Smugglers will be useful to get supplies into siege cities. A group that took over the smuggling den struck a deal with the local thieves guild to rebuild the house. Yeah, that'd be cool. I was wondering to see if they would want to do something with like finding a location or a headquarters or something, but we didn't end up going down that particular angle. Frankly, I don't see us ever really going back or using Saltmarsh or this location in my particular campaign. I think we're going to be, if I was using Sinister Secret of Saltmarsh and you were using this more as a hub, then yeah, that'd be a totally different context here. But instead, this is just going to be the starting point. That's basically the important stuff is the fact that they're building, they're smuggling weapons out to sea for some reason. And then once they get to the Sea Ghost, they'll get more information that there's something going on out in the ocean, specifically pointing them to Gunderland. I still need to figure out what exactly that piece of information is, about where the, goods are going or where the ship has basically come from. And that'll be, part of the big tease. But like there's something big coming. I would love for them to be able to take over the Sea Ghost. So that'll actually be the more important thing in this campaign, by the way. Instead of taking over the house, they'll be taking over the ship, the Sea Ghost. And that's really what I've planned for. If they end up like sinking or destroying the ship, then we're in trouble. Because my whole plan is to give them that ship. They can take it over. They've earned it because they'll have like, invaded it stealthily, hopefully, and fought their way and earned that ship as the end of this, opening mission. And then using that ship, they can cross the Sea of Swords and get to Gunderland and figure out the whole start of the plot, the real plot, basically. Although, also, I think while they're en route to Gunderland, I will trigger the salvage operation mission, because that will give further context to something is going on and will just be kind of a fun, very lengthy scripted encounter that's a cool, like, half-sunken ship. They will be, I think, only 3rd level, if I'm looking at my notes. for salvage operation, so I may have to ease it up a little bit, because they will make level 3 after they do the Sea Ghost. So they'll still be level 2 after they finish this little cellar and cavern, and we'll see how much we get through this session. I have no idea where we're going to end things on this session. I have no clue. It's really going to depend on what fights they trigger, how much surrendering they get. I mean, they could skip the whole skeleton room. That would free up a lot of time. Or they could get in there and that'd be a big fight. I expect we'll get through possibly a good chunk of it at least. And then if we need to finish up the caverns in session 3, and then plus do a lot of the in-between stuff to getting the Sea Ghost, like we return, to Saltmarsh, we give them the information, we figured our plans for the Sea Ghost, we even start off the beginning of the Sea Ghost, where it's we, get things going, and then we kind of find a good, thrilling stopping point there, and then on session 4 would be the actual, Sea Ghost portion of it. So that would be probably a good way of cutting down everything. And then I don't know how long the Sea Ghost itself would take. That would also be a couple big fights. If we get as far to we're about to trigger the fight on the Sea Ghost, then I could see the rest of the Sea Ghost being basically one session. But if we haven't even gotten that far yet, then we're still if we clean up all the caverns here, and then next session, for example, we have to do the in-between stuff, and then do some of the Sea Ghost stuff, and then we have to do the rest of it the next time. The one thing I will have to do, though, which is going to be tricky, is I definitely want a session to end after the players have commandeered the Sea Ghost and realize they need to basically go across the ocean. They'll get to long rest and level up and stuff, but I want to do that between sessions, so that would be the main stopping point there. It's tricky, as running D&D. This is, I obviously script as much as I can, but a lot of it is up to the players and the choices they make, and where I can determine where we can end the session. So at the very least, I would like to have a session end after completing the Sea Ghost, and then we can get our long rest, level up, and then definitely have a full session break before we go into salvage operation. And there are some encounters from a Call from the Deep. I believe it's in the beginning of chapter 1. I'm getting ahead of things a little bit. I feel like I've kind of covered a lot of the Sinister Secret, though. If you all have any more questions or concerns, definitely let me know. But I'm I've talked about the skeletons, the alchemist. I'm going to replace that cursed luck stone a little bit with just a luck stone that's cursed, I guess. Not the stats that are used in here, but literally just use a luck stone, but maybe so it's just attuned to you and you can't de-attune to it until you get the remove curse thing. I'll include all that extra bits in room 22. I'll try to come up with something for the footlocker specifically. And then the caverns, mostly as is, except I'm replacing some of the casks of wine with crates of weapons, just to confirm the story here that we're smuggling in weapons to these other ships that have been coming through. I don't see any other big changes or concerns here in terms of having to modify too much. And then once they get to the Sea Ghost, which I think I've got that set up now. Let's see if I figured it out. I think I've done all the dynamic lighting here since we did last time with all the doors and things. I did reference the original written document. It's just a little bit hard to tell because of the way the stairs are kind of interjected right next to all the doors and stuff. It was kind of tricky to see where all the doors were, but I think I've got it figured out mostly correctly, and I've put everybody basically in the spot similar to the caverns, where as if they were on alert. So it's not like you've got each individual person back in their rooms. Instead, you've got everybody kind of grouped together, which would still, if a fight breaks out, on this level, which is, I think, the main level they would appear at, that would probably include these 4 up here and then the bandit. So that's the captain, the wizard, and 3 bandits. And then you've got, forget if this is the bosun. Which one is this? The first mate. The first mate, another bandit. That would be your initial fight, basically. And, you know, I have no idea how that's going to go. We'll see what the players do for deception and things. And then I would delay the other half of the crew, which would be 4 other bandits plus this should be the bosun. Yeah. The 3 Sawagans, which I replaced from lizard folk, are also going to be really up in the air whether they're going to be involved in the fighting or not. I haven't quite determined how I'm going to use them, or it mentions in the text that I think they won't be involved in the fight. Let's see what the lizard folk are. Let's see. When they become aware of the characters, they initially assume they are smugglers and treat them as such, demanding a combination of Draconic and Broken Common to know when the weapons will be delivered to their kinfolk. I mean, their door is right there on the main thing, though. That's a part that confuses me, is like, wouldn't they be involved? If a fight breaks out on the main deck, which I imagine it would pretty quickly, you know, are they still just hanging out in their room, like right on their side of the wall? It feels kind of weird. And the Sawagan, unlike the lizard folk, would not be friendly, which is the big twist here, that you think the lizard folk are like gearing up for battle, but they're not. They're actually, well, they are gearing up for battle, but they're trying to defend themselves against the evil Sawagan. Shit, that's something I could keep, I guess. I do have Savra as a lizard folk, so I could do some of the lizard folk angle. And I do plan on using them for finding out where the final enemy thing is. But no, I want to keep the weapon smuggling to be the bad guys, the villains, the Black Armada, the Kraken Society. They're the ones that need the weapons because they're the ones that are attacking Neverwinter imminently. And the Sawagan are part of that attack. And the big tease here is like, wait, why are like pirates working with Sawagan? Like that is not an alliance that typically happens. Sawagan usually don't ally with anybody. And that would tease the fact that there's some bad thing going on when all these evil factions and creatures are suddenly allying with each other. So yeah, maybe I'll just include the Sawagan as additional enemies that come through. Maybe even the captain will like have somebody go and call for them. I think they're about as strong as lizard folk. They're not necessarily stronger. This is artwork from Call from the Deep, by the way. I'm just rolling with it because it's still pretty good. Yeah, they're still CR 1/2, average of 22 hit points. And they do have the multi-attack, but that would shift things quite a bit. But I could also delay them by a turn. So basically, they could come probably round 2 into the fight. And then maybe round 3 would be like the ones down here coming up there. So you could stagger that fight quite a bit. I made the Sea Ghost actually haunted. There's another chance for a haunted ship in this campaign, in fact. And it's going to be, the players will witness that on the attack of Neverwinter. One of the attacking ships will be a ghost ship full of ghost pirates. And those are the ones, I believe, that are sent to assassinate the Aboleth. And they will run into them and have to battle them, which will be hopefully pretty cool. Dude, I put numbers on all these guys, too. 1, 2... 3. We'll have another week at least to prep for this whole Sea Ghost thing, though. I wonder if this one should be number 1. That's the first one they're going to see. Let's make that one number 1. So 1, 2, 3. Because one thing you don't want to do with this system, of numbering NPCs, is you don't want to have like the first NPC they see be number 4, because then you've automatically told them that there are 3 other NPCs somewhere of that exact stat block. So I am leery of doing that. Trying to make the most visible ones be the lowest numbers. These guys will be 5, 6, 7, 8. There's also on this ship, which I haven't put on here yet, going to be a captured, probably Triton instead of a Sea Elf. Somebody who was probably sent by Gillian or related to Gillian, just to make that a fun expanded universe connection. And that character, in addition to maybe some kind of written journal or something somewhere, will be able to give some information to the players. I probably need to make this not a secret door so the players actually do find it. or just include it as a montage of as like you guys are exploring it. Because if you trigger a big fight here, um, chances are you're not going room to room exploring it. Really, you're not actually going to use a lot of the map. I say that not knowing, maybe they'll be smart about it and have somebody stealth away and explore part of the ship while they first do it. I don't know, but I could see us also just using this ship as like a single battlefield on like one level or something, and then I kind of have to montage the exploration of the ship. But obviously, the other thing is I could use this ship literally as their main, this map itself, as their main ship for when they're traveling the whole ocean, if they, assuming they can keep the Sea Ghost, which is another reason why I wanted to keep, this as their main ship going forward. Maybe they'll have a chance to get like a flying ship or something somewhere down the lines, but this could be there at least for the whole part where they have to send the ship over to the island and then send the ship back to Neverwinter. I'm assuming this is going to be the ship they're going to use, so I can use this same map, which will be pretty nice. What is the ship armed with? Could the smugglers use said armaments against the party? That is a good question. I don't think the Sea Ghost specifically has any fancy armaments that I know of. Let's see. It's got a jolly boat. Talks about the doors, stairways, enclosed areas, cargo hold, bilge area, and voltage from the hold side only. Yeah, it doesn't have. I don't think it really has any. It's mainly just a. And that's something that the players might be disappointed by. They don't have those kind of armaments. But Call from the Deep does include ways of upgrading your ship, which I think is pretty neat. Is that also in that same appendix? And that it's a cool way of as a money sink too, right? You could spend money to upgrade your ship. It does have certain rules for combat, which we'll get into. I do want to give the players a chance to do some naval combat. It might not be until they return to Neverwinter after they complete Gunderlin. But that would be a great opportunity because they will literally have to get through a blockade. They'll be coming across an invasion of a city from the water. So that would give them a chance to do some cool naval combat. I may even look at like Starfinder's like spaceship rules or something. I think there's got to be some good rules in there somewhere about people can, be doing different tasks. And as long as somebody, put them in initiative, and as long as somebody's rolling a skill check to do something, like, hey, if you're, captaining the ship, then you can make a whatever check. And then if you're successful, then your ship has, effectively takes the dodge action or something. Everybody else has disadvantage on you. Like, give something so that everybody has something they can do that's meaningful. I don't know whether I need to like specifically run mechanics for that or just let the players kind of give me ideas and then I kind of roll with that. We can see from there, but hopefully in Gunderlin they'll have a chance to upgrade the ship. In fact, I'm not even sure what kind of ship this actually is now that I think about it. What is the Sea Ghost? Is there any guesses as to what this is? Like, what kind of ship is this? What, let's see, the plan, the signaling system, boarding the Sea Ghost. I guess I could use context clues and figure out by the size of the ship. It's a length of nearly 90 feet. And I don't know how many people it can hold. What's your best guess to what kind of ship this is? Passengers, is it a caravel? Do we think it's a caravel? Caravel can hold 10 passengers. That seems about right, I think. Speed per turn. Or no, sorry, crew is 15, passengers is 10. That's actually a lot. Although sailing ship is also just kind of the generic thing, and that's got a 20 and 20. Holds 100 tons of cargo, AC of 15. It's worth 10,000 coins. Let's talk about how much the ship is worth. Oh, it does say they will pay for the return of the silk and brandy. A sloop. I was trying to look at this list here. This is the list from Call from the Deep. Yeah, here we go. Most large ships can be outfitted with weaponry. The table below details the various weapons available and includes the statistics needed to attack with the weapon or damage it. Ballistas, cannons, mangonels, rams, scorpios, and side shears. And then you can also do fun little upgrades. You can upgrade its weapon slots, HP, AC, just cost money. It seems like a kind of a fun little opportunity to upgrade the ship and have a nice money sink. Although they're not going to have a ton of money when they first get to port in Gunnerlund. It was a cog. Cog was one of the options here. That's only a 4-person crew. 40 tons cargo, 10,000 gold. I have to do some Google searching on what the fuck kind of ship. Never really heard of a cog. I've heard of caravel, bireme, galleon, galley, keelboat, longship, rowboat, sailing ship, warship. Yeah, I don't know what a cog is. I played Assassin's Creed 4. I know very little about ships. But I think that's a cool opportunity to put your mark on a ship and be able to do your own little upgrades and systems. But I don't think the Sea Ghost comes equipped with anything as is. You'd think it would have some kind of cannon somewhere, but if you look, it's just meant to hold like its entire main deck here, where you would have like cannons and things, is just barrels. It's just fucking goods. Which I may need to replace this with weapon crates then instead of barrels, unless they're putting weapons in barrels, which is kind of weird. And there's the bolts of silk. So I may need to actually upgrade this map with the fact that they are smugglers, but they're smuggling in. I guess they don't care about the weapon. Once the weapons reach the ship, they don't give a shit about smuggling anymore. They're just bringing the weapons to the bad guys. But they would be in a bunch of crates. Everybody's like, cannons. Picked this book up a while ago because I love the old modules from the early 80s. Yes, I think they are from the early 80s. There are 3 of these included in the Ghosts of Saltmarsh 5e book. I am going to use, I think it's this one. The second one is Danger at Dunwater. And then the third one in the trilogy is The Final Enemy. I'm probably not going to use Danger at Dunwater much, except for the fact that I will include the fact that lizard folk can point the location of the final enemy, and that, well, maybe I can include that in Savra's story as well, or character arc, and possibly use the Thousand Teeth kind of legendary crocodile encounter. Could be useful. I will use the final enemy though as the main layer for the Sahuagin. So to stop the Sahuagin threat, they will go to the final enemy, and that's just gonna be a really fun Sahuagin super dungeon layer. So I'd like to use a lot of the content from Ghosts of Saltmarsh, and I've talked about this in previous crafting streams, sprinkled throughout Call from the Deep, to where I might not even need to use a lot of the Chapter 3 stuff from Call from the Deep, which is designed to do all the kind of additional open world exploration stuff with additional content. But considering I'm going to be using a lot of the Ghosts of Saltmarsh stuff instead, I may not need a lot of that. Cog is a type of ship that was used during the Middle Ages, mostly for trade and transport, also in war. Well, that's not very helpful. It's a type of ship. All right. A type of ship of this approximate size, maybe. Yeah, we will figure it out. It's something we need to kind of decide on with the ship, but we're not going to get to the ship next session. I know that. We'll be cleaning up the caverns. And I don't know if we'll finish the caverns or not. I could see us going either way in terms of we wrap up all the caverns tomorrow, cellar and caverns. I kind of doubt it, but it may happen. Or more likely, we will get through a good chunk of them tomorrow, and then next week we'll finish it and then get all the way to starting the Sea Ghost, and hopefully I can do a really fun like stopping point where like they make it onto the Sea Ghost, and then like the jig is about up, we're about to roll for initiative, and then we can, stop the session right there. That's always the goal, is to have a cool like, pin drop moment for the end of the session. All right, I think that's going to do it for this Thursday edition of Crafting the Deep. If you know the content, please check out patreon.com/Rogue Watson. Shouts to Platinum patrons: Joe, Will, Thomas, Stan, Brennan, Genocider, David, Eclectic Roleplay Roll, Christopher, Brian, Corey, Koa 1337, Big Nut, John F, John L, Scott, Eric, Tyler, Nathan, Camp Crystal Lake Counselor, Andrew C, Gerald, the Reldrin, Captain Woody 79, Stephanie, Andy, B01135809, and Patrick. And gold patrons, RPG Paper Crafts, Pretty Boy, and Yuma, Desert Lounge, Sam, Lippy Spuds, Jerome, Nathan, Thessica, Tortoise, Scott, Preface, Karen, William, Gary, Thomas, and Prophet. Thank you all very much for your support. I will see patrons tonight for the DM Roundtable, and I will see all of you for D&D tomorrow.